I'm here with Tracey. Hi, Tracey.
Hi.
And we're here to talk about living the peace testimony. So, do you want to introduce this course in sort of a couple of sentences? What it's about?
So, Living the Peace Testimony is a webinar based course, and it's really about looking critically at our history of the peace testimony to see what we can learn from it, and thinking about what we should or could or might be doing to live the peace testimony today.
Oh, that's interesting. So, what was your motive or thinking behind putting this course together?
I do training for peace workers and ecumenical accompaniers. So I talk to them about the peace testimony, and it struck me that it's often very traditional, shall we say, what we say about the peace testimony. It's also often about all the good things we did, but actually looking into the history, it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think there's a danger that we work on the same old things, and we don't always look at what's new, what's coming up. Do we need to change how we work given the context we're in now?
That's interesting. I know for my experience, the peace testimony, it seems to either fall into two camps of Quakers who have a real, almost fixed understanding of what it is, and it's about doing certain things and behaving in certain ways, or people really, really struggle with it, and they're like, oh, it's the one thing I just can't wrap my head around. How do you relate that to injustice and oppression? And I guess, are you sort of trying to maybe break both of those open in this course a bit?
Yeah, I described the course as edgy, and somebody asked me what I mean by that, and I think it is looking a bit more closely, because I think actually there's never been a common understanding of the peace testimony, and it's always challenged by events. And you see that in the American Revolution, you see that in Bosnia, you see that all the time, people making different decisions but all living the peace testimony. And I also think that there are things happening today, and we've seen Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, where we really need to look at how does the peace testimony fit into that. The peace testimony is not a standalone. It's very closely related to justice.
So you said it was a webinar-based course. Do you want to kind of unpack that a little bit in terms of what that looks like functionally? Like, how long does the course last? How will people interact with it?
So the course is based around 4 webinars. So there's not a lot of preparation for the webinars. The webinars are the content, that there will be further reading available afterwards for people who want it. And the webinars will take place over 4 weeks, one a week. And sometimes I'll be talking, sometimes we'll have other people talking. And the first one is called To End All Wars, and it looks at how Quakers have reacted to different wars in history and what we might learn from that. And then how should we be working to end war now? So I look at things like arms trade, drones, and so on. The second one's about conscientious objectors, and we're going to look at Leeds Quakers and how they reacted to World War I. And then we're going to look at conscientious objection now. The third one is about violence in our communities. And the fourth one is about that question you asked earlier, which was about how peace relates to climate and social justice.
Is there anyone particularly in mind you had when creating this course?
I think if you want to know more about the history of the peace testimony, or any of the topics I've mentioned, it's a great way in, especially if you're not a person who likes reading great long documents. You don't have a lot of time, but you can, hopefully there's enough information in the webinar just to engage. So even if you only spend that hour and a half a week, you'll learn a lot, and it'll give you plenty to think about.